Hello and welcome to Aztecs All In, the podcast that goes all in on San Diego State sports. I'm Louis Weiner along with Todd Villalobos, two Aztec alums who love San Diego State sports. And right now, the Aztecs are teetering on the bubble, Todd, because the NCAA tournament is just a few weeks away and San Diego State looks to be in most brackets. But at this point, after that loss to Utah State, there's really no room for error at this point, huh?
Well, my question is this. After this weekend, is it now officially soccer season in San Diego? What a win by SDSU. No, man, our gutty little Aztecs are still hanging on, and there's a lot to talk about. But, yeah, not a good night in Logan, Utah. I mean, a gutty performance after losing Magoon Guath in the first 2 minutes. A gutty performance, because that's a really good Utah State team. But an L is an L, and who knows where we stand now on the bubble. But they do have a lot of work in front of them.
Yeah, Aztecs lose 79-71, but they led this game 69-65 with 3:42 left, and then went on one of their scoreless droughts, 14-2. Utah State, and 11 of those points that Utah State got were at the free throw line. The Aztecs only got off, Todd, just 4 shots in the final 3:42. It was a very strange end of the game when the Aztecs looked like they would take control. And somebody posted on Twitter that the first team to reach 69 points wins the game 70% of the time. Well, that didn't happen to the Aztecs this time.
Yeah, I hate to complain about the refereeing. Every fan base in America that loses a game, whether it's football or basketball, they whine about the refs. But this honestly was one of the worst ref games that I can remember. And I don't remember the Aztecs getting any one of those bad calls. But it is what it is. Where did Dexter Acano come from? 26 points. I think he was 7 for 9 from three-point land.
He was unconscious, Yeah,
against the Lobos 2 games ago, he had 1 point. And against the Aztecs in the first matchup, he had 0. He had as many points as you and I, and it comes back with 26 and just, steamrolled the Aggies to a win. So, sometimes you can't account for that stuff. It's nice when it happens for your team. You get somebody that you don't really count on normally to explode, and the Aggies had that and end up winning the game.
Yeah, but you said it was a gutty performance by the Aztecs, who lost Magoon Guath pretty early in the game, and you can argue all you want about that. He fell down under the basket. The refs did not stop the game. Aztecs went down and missed a shot, and then Utah State came back and got a score, and then they finally stopped the game. And you could see Dutcher on the court, getting the attention. The whole thing was just a farce, and I don't understand how the refs cannot stop a game at that point with a player on the ground writhing in pain.
I'm speechless on that one. I mean, you kind of understand bad calls. These calls are made in the heat of the moment, whatever the sport is. So sure, maybe a foul's not a foul. They missed a big travel on a three-pointer and ended up getting the Aztecs a foul. I think that was when B.J. Davis fouled out of the game. So it was a huge foul. That should have been a travel. Okay, you guys miss calls. But to blatantly have such a lack of good judgment on their parts to have the play continue for so long with everybody screaming and yelling, the ref on the baseline is standing right over Magoon on the ground, still doesn't have the wherewithal to stop the game. That was horrific. That was just awful. I hope they get reprimanded in some form or fashion, because that was inexcusable.
Yeah, and we're waiting to hear how bad the injury is. They called it a hyperextended knee after the game. He was seen in some pictures taking photos with friends in a brace and walking around, so that's a good sign, but we're still waiting to hear results of an MRI. He most definitely will miss this week's games, the Tuesday night against New Mexico and another one later in the week. And when he comes back, really, we just don't know. But it'll be hard for them to compete long-term in the NCAA tournament if they don't have a Magoon Guath at full strength, huh?
Well, they'll be playing in the NIT tournament if Magoon Guath doesn't come back. So competing in the NCAA tournament, I don't think will be an issue. But and it would be a real shame if his season were to end this way got my fingers crossed big time that we see him again this year. Even if he sits out and is ready for the tournament, I'm fine with that. He was so much fun to watch, really, developing into his own. And a guy, quite honestly, you could be in danger of losing to the portal at the end of the year. I have high hopes that we can keep him, but would be a shame if either A, his season ended that way, or B, worst case scenario, his Aztec career ends that way. We'll keep our fingers crossed that he's back next year. But let's hope we see him again.
Yeah, Utah State's coach called Magoon Gwath the best player in the conference, and he spoke very nicely of him after the game, which is nice. You had some Utah State fans posting stuff that wasn't very nice, but for the most part, I think the Utah State fans realized that they didn't face the Aztecs at full strength, and, they pulled it out. And I think if Gwath is in that game, there's a good chance that it goes the other way, huh?
Yeah, well, he's your big rim protector. The Aztecs have had trouble rebounding the ball. It came back to bite him again in the end a few times. And with him in there, redirecting shots and getting rebounds, it could have had a huge effect.
Yeah, and let's credit B.J. Davis, who played a great game. He scored 14 points, and I think he hit all three of his threes in the second half. And I don't often look at the plus-minus in the stats after the game, but this stood out. B.J. Davis, the Aztecs were plus 26 with him in the game. But Jared Coleman-Jones, minus 20. Wayne McKinney, minus 24. Todd DeGorville, minus 20. So that's kind of frightening to see these guys who play this many minutes just not having an effect. And Miles Bird was only minus 6, but man, that guy is just struggling, Todd. He 2 of 12 from the field, just 1 of 9 from 3 against Utah State, and he just cannot find his range, unlike early in the season when he was pretty consistent.
Yeah, I've always been hesitant to criticize, in private, sure, but, publicly criticize these players being college athletes and whatnot. But now they're getting paid.
Yeah, that's true.
And they're getting paid a lot of money. So now they're like professionals. So I feel a lot better personally, criticizing somebody if you're getting paid. And all the guys you mentioned, these are the guys that we're going to war with. Those guys, Pharaoh Compton, all these guys, a lot of them are young. I'm going to give you that. But they just not contributing at all to anything has been the hallmark of a lot of these losses in conference play. And we had high hopes for a lot of these kids, a lot of these guys early in the season, and a lot of them have taken a step back. And it's a shame to see. And if it doesn't change, you're just headed to the NIT, and that's all there is to it. I hope some of these guys turn things around and end the season strong and head into the tournament play on a high note.
Yeah, not to say that these guys haven't contributed. Wayne McKinney against Boise State scored 15 points off the bench when B.J. Davis went out early because he wasn't feeling well. And Todd DeGorville played pretty well. He hit a 3 in that game. So it's not to say these guys aren't contributing, but against the Utah State team, they definitely weren't very effective when they were in the game. And again, we didn't have Gwath, and so that made a huge difference.
Yeah, well, with a lot of these guys, the highs have been good, but the lows have been really bad. And I think they need to shrink that gap to even when you're not having your night, you can still contribute in some form or fashion. The free throw shooting for some of these, the numbers pop up on the screen when a guy, is it DeGorville that's like 30% free throw shooting? Is that
No, Pharaoh Compton.
Pharaoh Compton, yeah.
And Miles Heide. They're both, yeah.
Guy gets to the line and you see that number. How is that possible?
I know. You see a guy drive, Pharaoh Compton drive in, he's fouled, he has 2 shots. Oh, that's fantastic. But then you go, well, maybe he'll make 1? Maybe.
Yeah. So anyway, that's been the Achilles heel, of course. And look, rebounding and clutch rebounding and clutch free throw shooting have been the hallmark of the Aztec program now for 15 years with this incredible streak they've had with the program, 20 years. And this team just seems to be lacking that. Clutch rebounds and clutch free throws. They've been on the wrong side of those during the conference play, for the most part.
When Miles Heidi's in the game, though, he's their best rebounder by far, especially best offensive rebounder. And he's shown a little bit of offense, too. He scored 6 or 8 points the last couple of games. And he's showing, he's improved, definitely improved. Now, he's no Magoon Gwath, so, take that for what it's worth. But he's still improving and playing pretty well for the most part, I think.
Yeah, he's a guy I had high hopes for coming into the season. He didn't really live up to them in the beginning. I've seen a lot of effort, and I see some improvement, and that's all you can ask for. He's still a young player, sophomore, so, I do have I like Heidi. I like Heidi moving forward. He's a big, big body. Even as a freshman last year, just his body type he could match up against some of the veteran players in the Mountain West. Was hoping to see a little more improvement this season as a whole, but I think he's getting better as the season goes along.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. So, Aztecs, they're on the bubble, and they'll be on the bubble till Selection Sunday, no doubt. Joe Lunardi right now has them as the first team of the Final Four in, which means they would play in that Tuesday night play-in game as an 11 seed. Many other brackets have them in it as 10 seed and even a 9 seed. So they're 42 in KenPom, 49 in the net. 49 in the net's kind of low. But remember, Todd, the Aztecs did beat Houston, and they did beat Creighton, and they have 4 quad 1 wins. And I did look the other day, and of the top 100 teams in the net, only 43 have as many as 4 quad 1 wins. So I think their resume is good enough to get in as long as they don't stub their toe with a bad loss in some of these final 3 games. They're going to be playing Nevada, Wyoming, UNLV, and New Mexico at home, trying to come back after they were whitewashed in Albuquerque. So as long as they don't have a really bad loss, I think they'll be in. But again, with Magoon Gwath out, who knows if they can make up for that.
Yeah, you said it. Bubble team, we're living on the razor's edge. We haven't had a lot of these the last few years. We feel like we've been mostly comfortably in. And now this year's a little different. They got to have a hard road ahead of them because you're right, Magoon's going to miss at least a few games you expect. And these Mountain West games are no joke, especially the road games. And we'll see what happens. Tomorrow, Tuesday, against New Mexico is a big one, especially after losing big at the pit. And they'll have to pick it up and do it without their best player.
Yeah, so hopefully they'll come out strong against the Lobos. It's a home game. No giveaways, Todd, for this game. You remember a couple of months back, the Aztecs gave away a Brian Dutcher bobblehead. You don't often hear of a coach bobblehead, but, Dutcher's a real popular guy. He stands on the sidelines with his, hands on his hips, and that is what the bobblehead showed. And Aztecs All-In contributor, who's also on the audio version of the podcast, Steve Perez, was at the game when they gave away the bobbleheads, and he talked to some of the fans, and here's what they had to say on Brian Dutcher bobblehead night.
Louis, it's been a minute since Brian Dutcher bobblehead night at Viejas. It was brought to us by Town and Country. We did talk a bit about it in a previous audio version of Aztecs All-In, but this is the first chance for our viewers to actually see the famed Dutcher bobblehead, and we thought it might be fun to show you how the Aztec fans that night responded.
Heck of a basketball game.
Yes, sir. Aztecs head basketball coach Brian Dutcher, immortalized as a bobblehead. 5-year-old Marie Cates checks it out.
What do you think of it?
I like it.
We'll go inside and have fun, cutie.
Can you say thank you?
Thank you.
Think you want to poke him again one more
Yeah,
time?
one more poke. Does it look
I
like
like
him?
it. It does look like him. The pose, too.
Yeah, the pose is what gets it.
It's the pose, huh?
Yeah,
Yes,
the
it
pose
is.
for sure.
It's the
So
signature
how often
pose.
do you see him standing around like that?
All
Every
the time.
game,
The whole game. Go Aztecs, and thank you, Coach Dutcher.
I love Coach Dutcher, and he's worthy of a bobblehead as far as I can see. And you know what? He's brought us more success following Steve Fisher, and we love the Aztecs. I'd like to see him when he's animated going and defending one of the the players when they call foul on them that they didn't get fouled, or missed a foul call when they did get fouled. I can't think of a better place to spend the time, and I contribute in 4 different sports here to give back to the school in the form of season tickets.
Doing what he does on the side all the time, like this. And when he gets mad, he stomps his foot. Oh, he even got the shoes. Wow, Coach. Thank you, Coach. You're the best.
And Lewis, if you're superstitious, it's worth knowing this about the bobblehead. Aztecs lost the game where it was given away. Back to you guys.
All right, so I couldn't make it to that game, Todd, but my friend supposedly picked up a bobblehead for me, so I don't have my Brian Dutcher bobblehead in hand, or I would be showing it. But I can't wait to get it. I've got a Marshall Falk bobblehead and a bunch of other Aztec bobbleheads over the years. So bobbleheads are fun, and Brian Dutcher totally deserves it. So good for him.
Yeah, the question is, do you have the Uncle Teddy bobblehead doll? I have that one.
I do not have that one.
Yeah.
And that's one I wish I did have.
Yes.
Real quick, we talked about San Diego State basketball. The women's team, real quick, I want to check in. They are 20-9 on the season and 9-7 in the Mountain West, and it looks like they're going to finish in the top 5, which would mean they would miss the play-in game. So good for them. They're having a solid season. Anytime you get 20 wins, good for the women's team. And you wanted to talk about UC San Diego.
I want to bring up the good and the bad of who's not the Aztecs, right?
Yeah.
So UCSD is what is it, 36 now?
35 or 36 in the net. They got votes today in the AP.
Coming
poll.
off of a 39-point win against Hawaii. That's the good. But I really want to talk about the bad, because little brother USD, they've lost 15 games in a row. Steve Lavin really tearing it up over there at the Jenny Craig Pavilion. And the women's team just fired their head coach, Cindy Fisher, who had been there almost 20 years, has over 400 career wins. So horrible things going on for basketball at USD. And the baseball team over at USD has lost 7 in a row. So you know what? Things could be a lot worse. If you're an Aztec, you could be a Torero. So there you go.
Yeah, there you go. Well, the women's softball team for San Diego State off to a great start. They won 5 straight games at a tournament last weekend in Florida, and they are now ranked in the top 25 in the nation. So good for them. So if you have some time, go try to hit a women's softball game. And Brian Dutcher, post-game recently after a game, he says he's a huge softball team, so he's going to get out there and check him out as well. So good for the women's softball team. Last year they made the NCAA tournament, so perhaps good things ahead for them this year.
And we have a road trip coming up, a couple weeks off to Vegas for the Mountain West tournament. Are we going to do a post games emergency video podcast, or is that going to be audio?
No, absolutely. We will do Aztecs All In, both audio and video.
I'm in.
From Las Vegas. So we will be there, and we hope you will join us. Thank you so much for watching. You can also listen to our audio version with Steve Perez wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you'd like to give us, reach out to us, you could send us an email, aztecsallin@gmail.com. And of course, you can follow us on the X, Aztecs_all_in. So for my good friend Todd Villalobos, I'm Louis Weiner. Until next time, so long.